Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. We are live from the heartland here, at least I am, but today I've got two brand new guests with me, and talk about intimidating. I'm talking with two MIT students this morning, so I'm going to do my best to just try and keep up with them, but I want to welcome Adam and Spencer to the show. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've got, for everybody watching, on the screen, Adam will be on your right, and we've got Spencer on the left. So, well, guys, thanks for coming on. I actually heard about what you're doing. You are students at MIT, so number one, congrats on that. Amazing. Adam on the right is a senior, and Spencer on the left is a freshman. So we've kind of got both ends of the spectrum covered there. But you know, it's there's such a battlefield happening on university campuses nationwide, and it's just so nice. You're going to love this story when I share it with you. It's so nice to see the pendulum swinging back a little bit, and doing it in the way that this country was founded, with free speech and open exchange of ideas and open debate of ideas. And let's just get the ideas out there, and let's cut some of the censorship, and let's let the best ideas win. So, Adam, if you emailed me to tell me what you guys are doing. I had not heard of you before. I don't think a lot of people have, but I think you're probably going to be on the national scene soon. I think people are going to be picking up your story and really loving it. You've got some big things coming up. We'll talk about those in a minute. But before we get into that, set the stage for me. You're a senior at MIT. You've founded this new group. It's called MIT Students for Open Inquiry, so MSOI. Tell me what led you to do that, and what are you guys trying to achieve with this new group?
My journey to politics and involvement in that way began a few years earlier, 2016, 2018 or so. I was floating around different ideas. I was looking for what worked and what didn't make sense to me. But it was a while until I really got this initiative started from a personal standpoint. I'm a mathematician. I like to say that math is my native language. So getting the ball rolling on that took me a little bit, but I'm glad to say in the end, I think that my strengths in technology merge perfectly with my love for public speaking, for getting people together, and for creating ideas. And MIT Students for Open Inquiry is really an entrepreneur's way of getting the politics that we need to see in the realm. It's also a place to discuss ideas. And Students for Open Inquiry, we're inviting people, we're bringing in the heterodox and dissident ideas, because MIT is not your typical college. No, MIT is a place where the brilliant and the curious can thrive. And to do that, we need the range of ideas. But as you know, as an institution, MIT does tend to lean on a certain political side in certain points, and censorship is here, as it is in many other places in academia and the government. So I'm here to destroy that. We want to bring in different views, and I think that this is one of the most important missions that we have. We have a unique window at MIT here as students, as insiders, to make sure that these other people can be heard, to get the marginalized views into academia, because they deserve to be here, and that is our goal. That is our goal. We want to bring them all in. We want to make sure that these ideas can be heard. You know, the public believes something, the academics believe a different thing, but we want to merge it all together, especially when you think about where we are as a university. We should be at the pinnacle. We should be harboring most of the ideas, the creativity that comes with it. And really, that's not been the case in these last few decades. So the goal is to reverse this, to make MIT truly the place for creative insight and thought.
I told everybody you're going to like these guys. So that's fantastic. I love that story. So Adam, so you're a senior, and this organization has just really gotten up off the ground recently, the last couple months, maybe started back in May, but it's really started in earnest with the fall semester. Is this something, as a senior, as living through 3 years on the campus, living in that MIT university lifestyle, was this born out of your experience and maybe even your surprise that the universities are no longer the bastion of free thought and free ideas? Or tell me the origin of, is this something that you were struck with recently, or did it hit you pretty early on and you said, I got to find a way to change this?
It hit me pretty early on in 2016 or so. I was realizing that the cherished traditional American ideals were nowhere to be found in high school or in middle school. It's like we were being taught something completely different. There was no patriotism, no respect for American history, no traditional values, none of that. It was instead, this is diversity and inclusion and all of that. And I was, okay, so we're living in America. What about our heritage? And I did not see that. And I began to wonder, what's really going on. I would say I had a bit more conspiratorial journey than most, the people that I visited. But I would say it ends up in the same place. Who are we as people? What are we here to do? And I don't see that mission being reflected much at MIT. I think, we're all, there's a variety of different problems that I see. One of them is students come in, but they're not really sure of what their purpose is. It's like the higher calling, the character is not truly there. We all like to do great technical stuff, and I love MIT because we're highly technical and skilled. But I think that in terms of who we want to be as people, that type of education has been lacking. And I like to joke that at MIT, I've only heard the national anthem 3 times. Mm-hmm. And all 3 times I was the one singing the national anthem. So when it comes to restoring American values, especially free speech, which the younger generation does not seem to know about, it is very important that we get the word out. And for me, I think, I'm on the younger side, of course. So rather than host these types of events, I was exploring ideas. I was seeing and thinking through what other people were saying. These people are 40 and 50. They've really taken the time to think about what is going on in our country and what can we do to bring our country back. And you have a lot of people who spend more time talking about here's the issue, and they're mostly there for the money and the entertainment. But I thought to myself, well, how can I be the solution? Because as you'll see in, for example, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, it's one thing to talk about there is a problem. It's another thing to say, well, what can I do to solve the problem? And I began to realize from a personal level that every field that I've been in, whether it's optimization research, whether it's creating ideas and making sure that they can flourish, whether it's mathematics or what I do, eventually I'm going to be the one to step up and put the ideas forward. It's great to be a follower and to see what people are doing, but at some point, you got to come forward, especially if you have the ability to make things happen. And I think that's what we're seeing at MSOI is that we can make things happen. We've hosted Hirsch Singh, Ron Paul Republican. We've hosted Dr. Shiva, inventor of email, and he's a system scientist. We're getting these people involved. And I think playing the role of, I've been in the trenches, I've done the research. Now it's time to make sure everyone else can. We need to be the light and we need to spread it. That's where I'm on right now at this stage. It's time to spread the ideas.
Oh, that's so good. I want to ask you in a moment about how this has been received on campus. But before we get to that, let me bring Spencer into this. Spencer, your story, what led you here? And I love how you guys refer to yourselves on your website. Adam, I think you're listed as the captain, captain of the ship. And then you got your co-pilots. You got Spencer, and then not joining us today is another co-pilot, Isabella. So the 3 of you really 3-stranded cord putting this together. Love that. So we kind of heard, Adam, what motivated you. Spencer, what led you to this place, and what's your view on how things are going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I got to MIT campus and I found the political environment pretty lopsided. Like there's no conservative per se group on campus. I mean, there was an MIT Republican club, but like that club went defunct a long time ago. And so Adam was gracious enough in September, I believe, to invite me to join to start MSOI together and to work together with them. It's been a great endeavor. And, one of the reasons why I felt like this was necessary on campus is that we talk a lot about diversity and inclusion, DEI, but at the same time, we have not talked about intellectual diversity at all. Most academic institutions, most people on the left, they have not, they're acting in a way that suppresses intellectual diversity, which in my opinion is very important for countries to thrive and for things to move forward. Because especially at MIT, MIT is the epicenter of science and technology, and a lot of great discoveries, great breakthroughs in science came from people questioning the status quo and asking new questions, going against the establishment, going against the established theory. Darwin, for example, he came up with this new theory. He challenged Lamarck's theory of use and disuse, and he came up with this theory of natural selection. And at the time, that was a novel idea. Lamarck's theory was widely accepted, but Darwin still had the audacity to come forward, question the status quo, and have this sort of open inquiry. And I think that spirit of open inquiry is what's needed in scientific education, which is what MIT is supposed to excel at. And I feel in recent days, MIT's been backsliding a lot in terms of free speech. If you look at the disinvitation of Doran Abbott, he's a geophysicist from U Chicago, and he was supposed to come and give a lecture on geophysics. But then he came out against DEI. It was a totally unrelated issue. And then they rescinded his invitation. That's outrageous. People don't have the opportunity to speak their minds, and cancel culture and censorship have prevailed on MIT campus, as well as I feel most of the other big academic institutions. And in recent days, like I was looking at some statistics earlier, and it's quite appalling. If I have to be honest, like the number of MIT untenured professors has increased a lot in recent days, and like so that prevents academic like inquiry, that prevents freedom of expression, because like if a professor says something, like if they're untenured, then the university has like the opportunity, the leeway to fire them. So people would be more likely to self-censor, and like a lot of surveys in recent days have actually shown that to be the case at MIT. Like I feel like I can't remember the numbers exactly, but a good number of MIT professors have admitted to self-censoring. And I think like that's part of the institute's policy. And like if you look at what's happening right now, the world's in turmoil. There's a lot of like chaos, and people have felt unsafe expressing their true opinions, and people have been like, those surveys also have shown that people have been like self-censoring, not just professors, but like students and other people on MIT campus, because out of fear of cancel culture and censorship and harassment. And I think like that's unacceptable. We need to bring back the value of free speech. America was founded on the value of free speech. That's number one on the Bill of Rights. And I think like that's a fundamental right for every human being. And unfortunately, in 2023, free speech is backsliding. So, I have to thank Adam for, creating this initiative and inviting me on board. So
yeah, I love it, Spencer. You really hit the nail on the head with explaining what the scientific process and what these universities are supposed to be. It's supposed to be about challenging what we think we know, putting out a new thesis, testing the thesis, seeing which is better, seeing which idea wins. And we've almost lost that. And the detriment to society and just to culture and to discoveries is really worries me. I mean, we're no longer leading the world. We're falling behind. And a question to both of you then, I don't know who wants to take it, but is at these prestigious universities, surely these professors know that. So the ideology and pushing an agenda is more important to them than finding the truth? How do you explain that?
I don't view professorship currently fundamentally as a very truth-pursuing or noble pursuit anymore, actually. I would say that in this current world, once we lose our moral bearings and once we lose our principles and we don't see what the big picture is, I think if you look at America now as compared to, say, 50 years ago, it's become a lot more careerist and materialist. So when you look at what young people think of today, and you ask some professors, why do you do this? The answer is less and less, because I love it, because I believe I can contribute to the field, and it is important for us to have this knowledge. It's more of, to get the money so that I can become rich and fulfilled. The problem with that is when you lose the fundamental fiber of humanity, which is our purpose and a higher calling, it becomes very easy for you to get trapped underneath layers of whatever lucrative new, term like diversity or whatever it is that they have. So I think without that type of higher support, it becomes much easier for professors to not really know how to fight back. I mean, it's not exactly easy to fight back. There is a mountain of paperwork. It's a very bureaucratic nature of you must do this or you must do that. And it works in all directions. So it's not like today I can say, all right, here's what happens. We need to punch back. Of course, that's what we're doing at MSOI. But in the professorship and academia, from what I know from my conversation with some of these professors, the environment itself has reached a state in which it's not really easy to express the idea. So what's the solution? Well, the solution, as I view it, is, first of all, we need to have a clear systems idea of how we got here in the first place. And as I said, it's because we lost that moral foundation, that inner conviction that what we're doing is worthwhile, so we can become more easily received by ideas of a more political agenda or ideological bent. So the solution is first to get our backbones in order and to say, we're going to stop this, and then the mechanisms will work themselves out. When I joined the MFSA in June of 2023 and when I launched MSOI, it wasn't immediately clear how we were going to lift this off the ground or how the operations would come. Now, obviously, looking back at it, it's easy to take this for granted. Oh, we have these great speakers and we just bang, 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 put them all down the list. But this was not the case 2 months ago, but I stuck true to my principles. I said, we want to make sure that MIT can be this space where alternative ideas can find a home, because they have not been heard, and 90% of MIT students genuinely don't know about them. which is why when they're faced with questions on certain of these ideas, they're like, either I don't know or I'm skeptical of this. And once I figured out the purpose of MSOI, the steps naturally followed. I contacted people in the MFSA. I asked the speakers, would you like to reach out? I got Spencer to join me, and he's been doing a wonderful job. And we've really been moving the chain on this. So once we figure out the higher level stuff, the low level stuff follows naturally. And I think the same approach that works for MSOI is also the same approach that can work in academia. If we raise our voices as much as possible, we're of course we're getting attacked. I mean, we have a page on controversial communications. It's pretty fun, and MIT students are actually getting engaged. I think I like to call the twin demons apathy and antipathy. I think we've definitely started to remove the apathy at MIT for political and contentious issues because people are responding. Someone sent a satire of one of our emails. People are responding in these big 3,000-word essays about our speakers. So it's really wonderful to see. And I think once the students get engaged, we're going to start to see a different layer start to peel back, and we're observing that. So that's good.
Wow. Well, I think everyone can see now exactly how and why you both got into MIT. Obviously, very, very smart. And I always like to say the future is bright. And people like to blame the next generation and say they're, like you just said, apathetic. And some are, but there's some real shining stars. And you two are, and the three of you are certainly right among the top there. Well, Adam, you mentioned moving the chain, which football reference. I love it. I want to share my screen for a second because in the news today, I just a perfect example of what we're all talking about and what we're fighting. You're doing it on the university level, but you've probably seen this. Let me share this.
Mm-hmm.
So here, this is a national story about ideologies winning out over just the search for truth. There we go. Yeah, we can see that. So I don't know if you've seen this. For anyone that hasn't, football game over the weekend, Kansas City Chiefs. This child right here, I don't know how old he is. Doesn't look like he's more than 10 years old. Goes to the game, dresses up. Long tradition in football, college football, NFL football, high school football. You dress up, even paint your face the colors of the team. And of course, cancel culture came out and absolutely destroyed this kid and said he's wearing blackface. And you can't see it in this photo, but the other side of his face was red. And so they said, well, not only is he wearing blackface and he hates black people, on the other side, he's wearing red face and he hates Native Americans. And it's just, I think it's a microcosm of what you're talking about on the college campuses. And sometimes it's good just to see an example. No desire to find the truth here, just outrage and cancel culture and ideology seeping through. And it's breaking just this morning. I haven't even had a chance to cover it yet, but there are reports coming out, and I haven't verified it yet, but I've seen it from some pretty good sources that this kid has a strong Native American heritage. He is Native American. So what an absolute stupid thing to say. But this is the type of stuff we're fighting, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the only solution here is to fight back as hard as possible. It's funny in one way that the right wing and the conservatives have been, since the 1990s, they've been talking about how academia is lost and we need to find other ways. And then academia is literally right in front of them, and then they don't fight back. That's the funny thing. The funny thing isn't that we don't have the resources or we don't have the will to win. It's that we haven't engaged enough resources. And when I say we, I'm speaking from a personal perspective, not necessarily MSOI, although I see we can have some overlap with the more conservative leaning side. And I think the big problem is really, if you look at it from a higher perspective, the mob and evil entities always take the path of least resistance because it's most effective in getting their goals across. So as long as we stand in the sand and we say no further, then they can attack us all they want, but they're not going to be very successful. I mean, as you cited in the article, there was a trans group that said, oh, Hirsch Singh, he's harmful. You shouldn't have chosen him, get him out. And we said, no, it was great. We're proud to stand by him, and we will do this for all of our speakers. And, there's nothing they can do because once we smurf our foot down, so to speak, I mean, that's a smurf reference. Once we do that, it becomes impossible for us to be dislodged. There's a reason why on the MSOI website, I said we will secure a beachhead for academic freedom because we've seen how, for example, in D-Day, once you have that beachhead, it becomes impossible to take away. And that's what we're launching, and I hope that we can succeed in this regard. And I think with respect to the Chief situation, if enough people stand up and say, these claims of racism are ridiculous, shut the fuck up, then we will win. And now it's time to move on to the next battle and so on.
That's
so
right.
If we're defiant, and it's just this shift in your own mentality, right? If your mentality is, I'm scared of the left or I'm scared of this cancel culture, then you will lose. But if your mentality is we have something to fight for and let's fight together with other people who are building up a coalition, then our mentality becomes, I don't care what you throw at us, we will get through this or we will die in the process. So that's the mentality that we have together as MSOI. And I hope that that's the mentality that more people can embrace, because we have a lot to lose, but at the same time, we have nothing to lose.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of the beachhead. And I put in my article, and I say this all the time, that I really believe, like you said, people are self-censoring. They are afraid to speak up. And I really believe it would just tremendously turn the tide if we just had good people in all walks of life just speak up and speak out a little bit and say, I don't agree with that. I don't think we should cancel this person. I don't think we should cancel without inquiry. I don't think we should. I think maybe we should ask some questions here. Good people, good teachers, good plumbers, good lawyers, good doctors, good people on college campuses. Hey, good people in the news like me. Just speak up and let people know. And all of a sudden you might find out, hey, 5 of my neighbors on my street, we all actually think the same thing, but we were all just afraid to say something first. Or, hey, my doctor does agree with me, but he's afraid to speak out and get canceled by the pharmaceutical industry or whatever it may be. So with that, I want to, that kind of leads into, I've been really curious, been wanting to ask you how, so you're fairly new, but you're making tremendous strides. You're moving fast. Like you said, you've had some big names invited to campus already and some bigger ones coming. And we'll talk about Dr. Steve Kirsch in a minute. Mm-hmm. But how has this been received on campus? And tell me in 2 categories. How has it been received by professors and faculty and administration? And then how has it been received by your fellow students?
On the professor side and the administration, I think, as administrators, as professors, they maintain a certain level of neutrality. I have spoken to many of my professors about this, and they said, this will be interesting, or I don't really agree with this, but let's see what happens. So they're a bit more distant, but they are interested in seeing what we can bring to the table. I wouldn't say I have the most accurate pulse on that, however. As we go on, I'm sure that we'll start to get the range of reactions. As for students, Spencer, how has it been with you and your friends?
I feel like a lot of people have actually paid attention to MSOI, like not necessarily agreeing with us or our mission, but they know who we are. Like apparently there's been, Adam, do you see this? A meme about our group. So I think like we're getting popular.
Hey, that's when you know you've made it, when they're making memes about you.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like Adam said, a lot of students on MIT campus are like indifferent about politics, but I think like we've sort of taken some of them out of apathy, and they've responded to our emails. They have engaged with our materials, and I think like that's a good progress. Although there are still a good number of them that came out and severely criticized us, like the trans group that called her saying like dangerous, which I believe like it's very easy to stand on a moral high ground. It's like easy to label, for example, like Steve Kirsch as anti-science, or her saying as homophobic or whatever. It's easy to stand in that like sanctimony and call other people like hateful or stupid or dumb or ignorant or something like that. And it's a lot harder to actually open your mind, open your hearts, and actually engage with their ideology, with their like things they have to offer. And I think like that's true on MIT, like in a lot of cases on MIT campus. Like a lot of people would rather just call like her saying dangerous or homophobic and call Steve Kirsch like anti-science. And there's actually an email, like an anonymous email, calling our like list of speakers, like calling all of them dumb and intentionally bad, and like that's totally ludicrous. I think like they have to offer like it's easy to, because like I think that's the mentality that's pervaded mainstream media, it's pervaded academia, that's pervaded the left, that if somebody doesn't agree with you, then they're probably dumb or something, or they have some issues. Like if you don't agree with men competing in women's sport and you're transphobic, if you don't agree with vaccines, then you're anti-science, you're ignoring facts or something like that. And I think like, or with the kid in Native American, like in the headdress and like coloring his face, I think like it's easy to call them names and like label them as racist, but they don't want to hear his side of the story, or just sit back. And by the way, that kid's probably more Native American than Elizabeth Warren.
That's great. No doubt. I think no doubt on that one. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, yeah. Speaking of this cancel culture of a speaker comes in and they just want to label them something. isn't the better solution, and isn't it really what our country was founded on? Don't you invite that person in? Maybe not everybody, but if you got a beef with someone, let them come in as a speaker, put them on a panel, and ask them about it in front. Have a debate, have an open exchange of ideas. Do you believe this? Is this what you said? Isn't that what our country is supposed to be? Not you just cancel them and now they can never participate in anything ever again.
Exactly. But in order to make sure that happens, we need to hold the power. I think, especially with the Steve Kerr situation, it's, the people in academia and the medical establishment seem to hold all the power. They have the legal stuff, the Vaccine Acts and all that. They can mandate all this stuff. And if it's dangerous, oh, well. But now I think the narrative is changing. People are starting to realize in mass quantities, there's a mass awakening that something is absolutely wrong with what's going on over the last few years. And the great thing is we can leverage this narrative shift. That's why we're bringing in Steve Kerr. We need him to be able to express himself. We need academia, and the medical establishment have been the two most resistant places to ideas of a different nature or of questioning. So if we strike Steve Kerr tomorrow at MIT, it will be a massive blow to this censorship complex. And, we can talk about, it would be great if we can have someone to debate Steve. The people either ignored him or they said, Steve is underqualified and he's stupid. And they're not really interested in that, which is fine. But we just need to make sure that we can get our ideas out. And if the people want to believe it, then they believe it. If the people think that they have a different opinion, then that's perfectly fine as well. We just want to make sure that the ideas that have been suppressed can get out.
Yeah. So you talk about holding the power, and you're exactly right. If you want to influence any change, you have to have some level of power to do it, and some level of power and influence. So I wanted to ask you about that. I assume you had to get some sort of a faculty sponsor for this launch of the new group. How has that gone? I guess to its credit, MIT has not canceled you. They did not deny your charter. They allowed you to form, and they're allowing these speakers to come onto campus. So maybe speak to that a little bit. How has that gone? Speak to what level of power they are giving you there, which I think to that degree is admirable.
I think the MIT folks in charge of recognizing groups and approving events have been pretty good on this front. I've been in communication with them about what are our ideals, why are we doing what we're doing. So that has been pretty clear. I think as administration, of course, if they come up with some sort of reason to cancel us, then we will be coming out in the thousands. The MIT Free Speech Alliance is our neighbor, so we can reach out to them at any time. But I think they have been doing a good job of just, this is another perspective. And I think the onus always is on us to provide the best speakers, to provide the topics at hand, and to make sure that people have it heard. I'm more focused on let's get our house in place, and if they try to mess with us, then they will regret it. It's simple as that.
Yeah, scoreboard. Just win, and then a lot of problems get sorted out. I like that. Well, we've talked a lot about Steve Kerr. He is coming. So we're actually we're talking on Wednesday, the 29th, and he is coming tomorrow, I believe, Thursday, November 30th at 6 p.m. Speaking at the Kirsch Auditorium, right? I mean, this is literally he is a MIT class of 1980, and for all of his achievements, and I'm sure probably a donation too, but he has the Kirsch Auditorium named after him, and he'll be speaking in his own auditorium. Pretty incredible. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but talk about why you chose to bring in Steve Kirsch, and what do you hope to see from that event tomorrow?
Well, I've been following the vaccine trail for a while now, Noah, and joining the MIT Free Speech Alliance, I got a chance to witness Steve Kirsch's Substack, which has the data. For a long time on his Substack, the headline was "Vaccines Cause Autism. Here's the proof." So that was brilliant. With respect to actually inviting him, I noted, hey, he's an MIT alum. He invented the optical mouse. He probably has close to $1 billion. This is a guy who has been very successful in the tech world, and MIT was founded on the basis of technology. But he also has a great dissident view when it comes to vaccines. So he would be the perfect candidate to have for the fall semester. So I got in touch with him. There's a variety of methods to contact him. And he said, yes, I would love to come. And we worked out all of the details, and here we are.
Excellent. Okay. What kind of turnout do you expect for that tomorrow?
Should be huge. I mean, the auditorium's 318 seats.
Okay.
Look at the registration. We should be in very good shape.
Is it MIT students only, or is the general public invited to this?
It's for the MIT community, but the general public does have a live stream that they can view everything in.
Oh, great. Okay. So yeah, I'd like to tune into that live stream. That'll be interesting. So I'll get the link from you. We'll post that below this video. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's absolutely wonderful what you're doing. I'll put all the links to your website. You've got a great charter statement. that I'd like people to read that. It explains what you're doing, what's motivated you. We'll put all the links below this video. I know you're only a couple months in, but I just want to say keep on with the good fight, and you're making a big difference. I'd love to see this concept spread to charters and other universities too. Instead of the MSOI, maybe it's the PSOI over at Princeton and so on. So I would love to see that. I always like to give our guests the last word. So Spencer, why don't we go to you first? Anything that we didn't cover, or any word you'd like to leave people with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like free speech is very important. And like Adam said, people we need to engage in every battlefield possible, because like when we choose not to engage, that when the other side wins. And I think like that's been true with, especially true with academia. If you look at the indoctrination that's happening in Florida, in California or New York, and that Florida is working against, the trans and things that they try to feed like small kids, which is unacceptable. Or the idea of like the critical race theory, or that America's founded on racist basis, or that like this DEI thing. I think like when the conservative side chooses not to engage, or not to engage fully, that's when the other side wins. Like that's this conversation about like DEI, about like this trans and race stuff, like has pervaded society. Is like that's dominated a lot of conversations, a lot of free flowing discussions across the country, and think like we need to fix that. And the way to fix this kind of thing is to stop talking about it. Like instead of focusing on diversity, this is my opinion, instead of focusing on like these sort of outward diversity, we need to focus on intellectual diversity. Like I said, like Darwin came up with this theory because like he thought differently, or like a lot of the other like scientists, inventors, great thinkers, politicians in the past, like they experimented, they did things that had not been done before. Like those things succeeded. And I think like we need to bring that back to our environment, to college campuses, but also to like our workplaces, our neighborhoods, to schools, to like every level of our society. Like we need to restore free speech, remind people the value of open inquiry. And I think like that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what I hope would be done like throughout at college campuses throughout the country, and at other places in general.
I love it. I love the idea of intellectual diversity, and that I haven't heard that before, but that really summarizes it. Why can't we have different ideas, different competing ideas, and debate those? Why are some ideas just deemed you don't even get an opinion on that? So I love that. It reminded me, as you were talking about the old Apple campaign. I'm a big Apple fan, big Steve Jobs fan. The Think Different campaign, and the famous ad about we are the misfits, we are the round pegs that don't fit into a square hole. That very, very famous Apple commercial.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
That's what always led to greatness, was the people that didn't fit in the machine, and they challenged the status quo. They challenged it with a different idea, and maybe that different brilliant idea leads to creating the optical mouse like Steve Kirsch, or it leads to something, Steve Jobs building a company that pushes the status quo. So I love that. And that's why this is so important, what you're doing, because when you change the thinking in the universities, then that spreads out to the people that are going to go and change the world in their jobs and their careers and what they do. So I love that concept. Adam, very last word for you then. You get to bring us home.
Well, I'd like to thank all of the organizations I've been a part of and all of the ventures that helped me on the journey over here. I think that my entrepreneurial background and my ventures there, my mathematical thinking laid the foundation for the mindset that allowed the MSOI to be created. the summer was great. I went to the UATX, or University of Austin Forbidden Courses, then a brief meeting with the Mises Institute at one of their programs and the Ron Paul Institute. So it was really just an accelerating curve. I also want to thank Spencer for leading the charge with me here at MSOI. I'm sure that we'll have a lot of brilliant years ahead to come. And I also wanted to thank you, Noah, for being the first to get us not only on the news, but also on a video or podcast. This will be really the greatest investment that you've done. I mean, there's a lot of great investments that you've done, but I hope that this will become one of the sparkling ones. And I said in 2018, I looked at the conspiracies, right? And I really want to thank my dude, David Icke. Okay. He's probably the weirdest guy to a lot of people, but he's really been that bastion of let's explore what we can. And, he's been canceled. He's been laughed at. He's been everything. But the one thing that struck me from him, and there's a lot of things that struck me, is that he said, look, wherever you are, no matter what circumstance you find yourself into, speak out because your voice is all you have. And no matter what you're doing or what walk of life you have, always keep pursuing what you know to be right. And if we can keep that mentality, we can keep winning. We don't need everyone to agree with us. We don't want everyone to agree with us. But if we can take the power into our own hands and build the change that we want to see, then we can create that better reality. So I wanted to give that shout out to him. And of course, here's to the work to come, because there's a lot of it. And the spring is going to be full. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing all of this. And hopefully we're going to do a bit more singing as well in our events. But that's another story. So thank you for having us on.
Hey, thank you. You talk about investment, and listen, if I could buy stock in both of you, I would. So I love it. I want to stay in touch with you. I'm going to continue to follow what you're doing. You mentioned a busy spring. Maybe we'll have you back on in the spring. We'll see how things are going and do a status update. But sounds like you got your hands full in the meantime, and keep on doing a great job, both of you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Talk soon.